Shelley, welcome back to our Contractors Liability Insurance Series.
Thanks, John.
In this segment, I thought we could talk about different types of contractors, specifically with, I remember you showing me a sheet, and there was this very specific document you created on a progression of risk.
Yes.
And I think there's like 20 to 30 different types of things.
Contractors.
Could you maybe help give our audience an idea of, hey, what's a low risk business model, maybe a medium, and then super high, at least in our region?
Absolutely. Okay, so generally when a client calls, that's, I have to establish what are they doing. Are they a tract home builder, custom builder, production builder, condo builder, remodeler? And that brings up the funny story that we talked about that day, is that I had done a presentation at Done for you guys years and years ago. This got like 20 years ago. And there was a crotchety old guy in the back of the room. And he's like, well, I build condos and sometimes I'm building a fence. And I was like, oh, Lord, he's just a heckler, right? And I told my assistant that was with me, he'll be the first guy to call me Monday. And he was. But the reality is again, we back things up into the exclusions into it. And when you have a jack of all trades, that's very difficult because we don't know what they're going to do, right? So if a little bit of this and a little bit of that is absolutely my worst nightmare to try to insure. That in your spread of risk, in the sense of you're going to pay for the top thing. So you do one really high risk project and 90% of the rest of what you're going to do, you're going to pay this high rate for the other 90%. So you want to kind of average out your risk is one thing. As far as a high risk, obviously, a high risk is condos with rooftop elevators, outside glass type. Okay. Those are difficult. Or connecting breezeways, things like that. Those are very difficult. High engineering, unfortunately, to even get those built. So there is some safety in the fact that they've been engineered heavily and permitted, but they're just big and hard to control. A low risk is a custom builder is very easy. When we look at it, we're like, okay, what's the amount of foot traffic it's going to have? How many subcontractors are going to be involved? What are the controls that are going to be in place around it? Is it in a gated community?
Yeah.
I get the call. Hi, I'm a general contractor. I need insurance. How much is that going to be? I'm like, I don't know. I need a house built. How much is that going to be? Right?
Yeah.
There's a million factors, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when it gets to the point where I can't get a straight answer out of somebody and a little of this, a little of that, I'm like, oh boy. And then you get the questionnaire back and it doesn't match up to anything that they said and I'm not feeling comfortable. Yeah. I send them my list and I say, draw a line, right? So you get in the progression of risk. So this is where you leave off. You want to be able to do everything from here to there. Great. Yeah. This is off limits. Great. Sign here. Initial that. And then I put that and I send it to the underwriter sometimes too, because they think it's hilarious. But, so here it is. Okay, we're going to back our exclusions up to this. And then when they call and say, I'm going to do whatever, I'm like, that's 4 more down on the list. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's where they get into trouble because they're getting into a project that's over their head. They're not experienced with, they don't know what they're doing.
So that custom home, basically it's one home going on at a time.
Right.
So could you maybe compare that to somebody who had maybe 4 going on a little plat? And what are some of the things that change that risk model so much?
More traffic right out of the gate, more attractive nuisance. You've got it looks like, it's a bigger space, right? Kids want to go party on the weekend, whatever might draw. So
more materials laying around.
Materials around for theft, people.
More subs working at any one time,
right?
Maybe.
Yeah, and then from a construction defect standpoint, if you have something wrong with one and it's a similar sub in every one, you're probably going to have a repeat in every one of them.
Gotcha.
So that's the problem with tract homes. And why that's the big fear is you got like, kind, and quality all going on. One has a bad skylight, they're all going to have a bad skylight.
Okay. I have a friend that has an auto collision business and used to ask my kids if they want to look at a car or whatever. I'd say, hey, Nick signs off, we'll take a look. And, and a lot of times he'd call me up and say, Jim, that's a 10-foot pole car. You know what I mean? You don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So when you're talking to your clients, are there some things you just say, I really would rather you don't do this, period?
Yes. And
is it just condos or is it other things?
I've gnawed my tongue off so many times. It's just, you watch this. I do this all day long, every day, and have been for decades, like you said. And I've seen it over and over and over. And it's usually they jump down that list of progression too fast and get into something over their head. And I've tried and tried and tried. I had a client that, they were going to do this condo project. This one was actually years ago. And I said, oh, dear God, please don't do this. Oh, you're not set up. They no. And, there was bonding requirements they didn't know about, permitting, just so many issues. And, that just was over their head. And I could see in their budget, they hadn't left any wiggle room. I mean, it was so tight. There wasn't room for one error of any kind, right? And sure enough, it did them in. And later they were, Master Builders Membership Committee was calling them and asking them why they didn't renew their membership. And she told Larry Chimini at the time, hey, will you tell Shelley Lucas Kennedy she was absolutely right? Yeah. And another one right now I'm grappling with. I mean, I literally wrote him a long email, please don't do this. Oh, please don't do this. And then called and begged, as your friend, not as your broker, as your friend, I'm begging you not to do this job. And he's, I'm going to make millions and I've got $3 million invested in it already. And I'm like, sell it, you'll get your money back or come close and break even. But I would rather, even though I had spent a year and a half working on this over all the feasibility and so forth, I'm like, I'm willing to walk away too. I'm all in, don't do it. You're going to lose your butt.
Yeah. So these are people that you had them insured probably. That's not the conversation we're having. It's really about not understanding what they're getting into from a project.
Yeah. Well, it's it's the not understanding. Again, the contracts don't match. Nothing, it's just, I'm so excited about this project, I'll sign anything. Yeah. And then it almost always gets down to that, it's hurry up and wait for a year and a half to 2 years. And we're every week it's, we're going to break down next week. And every one of us knows better. We're like, yeah, and they just want us updated quotes. And we can't go to the underwriter 20 times and have them update a quote. That by the time we get to it, they won't write it. They're over it. They're keeping track of their expenses. They've lost money writing it. They're out, right? And people don't understand that as well. Is that this is all financially driven. Yeah. So by the time it gets to it, then it's all of a sudden, we're going to lose our loan. The permits are going to expire. Whatever's going to happen, and we had to do it in a week. And now we're forced into a box of rush. And now we're not doing the best job, and they'll sign anything. Yeah. Literally sign anything, even if it's not good, just to make sure the loan closes. Yeah. Can't tell you how many times that's happened.
This takes me back to just what we talked about, just the value of having a risk management professional involved. Mm-hmm. If they were with your agent, you're going to have some of these conversations up front and potentially keep your clients out of the weeds. Yeah. Even though it's technically not insurance, it's just being a friend, being a good advisor. Yeah.
And it's the communication. The communication lacks. We need a binder by noon, and it's the first time we've ever heard of the project. I'm like, well, gosh, you've gone through all your feasibility, you've tested the land, you've literally known about this for at least a year. Okay, maybe 2. And all of a sudden you need a binder by noon. It's like, so trust us, tell us what's going on, and then we'll tell you how to timeline it out.
There you go. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you talking about the progression of risk and some of the things to be thinking about. Thank you, Shelley.
You bet.